Hi everyone, and welcome to Series 2 of the Confidence Conversations podcast. I'm Gail from Enrichment Coaching, and I'm a personal development and confidence coach. My vision is to live in a world where people feel confident to be their best authentic version of themselves every day. I really want to empower people to take action through exploring what I like to call their confidence DNA and how they can enrich it. So my style of coaching is really informal, it's conversational, and it will always be all about you. I'm not all about models and theory, although I do believe they have their time and place. I'm really actions focused, I'm direct, and there's no fluffy stuff involved. And I'm a big believer in pulling up your big pants and going and getting stuff done. Now, I love to make a difference to those beliefs that you have about what you think you can and cannot do. So if you've been thinking about how one-to-one coaching might work for you and you want to find out more, then get in touch through my website, which is enrichmentcoaching.co.uk, and you can find my links at the bottom of each show notes. So enough about me. I'm really excited to be back with Series 2 of the Confidence Conversations podcast with some incredible guests who are ready to talk honestly about them and their confidence. Now, for this series, rather than kind of general confidence conversations, we're going to be digging a bit deeper to understand more about the things that have an impact and the things that enrich your confidence. And remember, there's little to no editing, meaning the conversation you hear is really authentically confident. If you listen regularly, I'd love you to subscribe. And more than that, I'd love to hear what you think. So feel free to get in touch. So go on and listen to the latest episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to this next episode of the Confidence Conversations podcast. It's been a while. I think we've had a summer off. Well, we've had the summer off. Whether it's been summer is another thing. Anyway, today's guest, I'm really excited about this one. Today's guest is the one and only. I want to kind of call you Mr. Shirtman, because I'm sure some people will now know who I'm talking about. It is Phil from Chichester Recruitment. Welcome
Hello.
to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here. In a shirt, obviously, a really nice.
Yeah, obviously,
loud shirt.
Which is how we know. I'm sure the other day we were going to a networking, which is where we met, and I was walking down the street and I didn't know it was you, but I knew it was you because I could see your shirt, and I thought, there's got to be Phil.
I put this one specially selected for an audio recording. So
yes, it's still amazing. It's still amazing. Brilliant. So Phil, look, the reason that we've just had a quick conversation, but the reason that I was adamant that you were going to come on the podcast was because I'm working with a lot of clients at the moment who are coming to coaching, and they're either thinking of moving jobs, they want to think about their CV or just updating their CV. And there's this whole piece around, I've not had an interview for years, or I have not had a no from an interview because maybe I've been internally promoted. Or this whole piece around, how do I even sell myself, whether that's on a CV or at an interview? So I think the link for me between kind of this confidence and, I want to say selling yourself, that isn't the right phrase, but you kind of know what I mean.
Well, it's not far off, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's also any small business owners that do networking. It's what we do at networking all the time, isn't it? We stand there and we do a pitch and we sell ourselves. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about you and what you do and how you came to be Chichester Recruitment.
Oh gosh, how far do you want to go back? I mean, that's I always tell a very quick story. I literally, when I left school, I wanted to be a policeman, and I had a big problem with my nose. It was too close to the ground. I was too short. So they basically said, just go away and grow and come back. So 6 years in the military, Royal Air Force Police, last 2 years as a dog handler. And then I came out and I thought, actually, I don't want to be a policeman anymore. So I went into sales. And after 6 years in sales, I went into recruitment, and I've been in ever since. It's a very potted history, but I always wanted to run my own business and work for myself, and I had this grand vision, as we all do, of running a business and so on. And recruitment's all about people, and I guess that's one thing that I feel is one of my strengths, if you like, is people. It's the ability to get on with people, and recruitment in particular is all about understanding people and helping out people, which is something I really enjoy as well. But but you don't necessarily need to be super clever. You don't need to be highly technical. You need to be empathetic and understand things. So Solid Recruitment was set up 12 years ago, which is the current business, and I rebranded to Chichester Recruitment because, as you know, it does what it says on the tin, and it recruits for permanent roles in and around the Chichester area, to be honest with you. And I do get opportunities to recruit elsewhere, but I don't want to. Chichester is more than enough. It keeps me busy.
Yeah, and I love that though, that you're kind of confident enough to go. The two bits that I love that I think are quite confident for me is the piece around Chichester Recruitment and the permanent employees.
Yeah.
Because I know you're asked that a lot, aren't you?
Yeah.
What was the decision behind just working with the permanent roles?
I've never, in nearly 30 years, I guess, in recruitment, I've never worked temps, and I've never really wanted to. I understand a little bit about it, and I quite often get asked about it, but I'd rather refer that. I think with all things, you have to play to your strengths. Mine definitely isn't temps. Never has been, and certainly never will be now. So it's a great market if you can do well in it. Although interestingly, I've spoken to some other recruiters in the local area who've said the temp side of the business has dropped off,
Really?
and the permanent roles are picking up. So interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah, really interesting. I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I was quite surprised when I spoke to one particular colleague about it. But yeah, because you'd think, well, especially around here with all the farm labour and sorts of other things. But no, permanent recruitment. And it's, I know it, I understand it. I'm quite happy. I'm quite comfortable with it. Why change, to be honest with you?
The other thing I really want to explore that I was my ears picked up at because I didn't know this. I didn't know about the military police and the dog handler piece. I mean, we could just spend the whole podcast talking about that. We're not going to. But what I am interested in is when you in the military.
Yeah.
What do you think that did for your own confidence?
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it's interesting. And I was there. Obviously, I knew this podcast was coming up, and I always think it's quite interesting to drop it in because actually, for me, somebody who's served in the military for a reasonable amount of time, 6 years is a reasonable amount of time. That means something to me. It means discipline. It means camaraderie. It means you can follow a set of instructions. It means trustworthiness. So when I joined at 17 from school, it was like, wow. And basic training was tough. A lot of people didn't make it. Police training was tougher still. So, it gives you, I think it gives you a good background. It instills confidence in you. I'd recommend it to anyone. Maybe not so much nowadays, a little bit dangerous depending on where you're going and what you're doing and stuff. But I really enjoyed it. But the one thing that struck me was when I got discharged all those years ago. One of your CO writes you a little reference, and one of the things he put about me, which stuck to me to this day, and it was a long time ago, is Corporal Salton has an infectious sense of humour, which might be a surprise to you.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
But I bet the ability to make people smile is really quite important, actually. I find, and actually, if we talk about confidence, I always encourage any candidates I'm putting forward towards interview is to find something in common and smile a lot, and ideally have fun and laugh, because you've instantly got a connection.
My God, that's a great top tip, right? First of all, isn't it? About just find that thing in common, smile. Which is hard to do when you're nervous inside, because you are nervous when you go to an interview. Yeah.
It's a weird situation, isn't it? An interview is you're sort of meeting someone and you're really hoping to try and get this opportunity that and I've had some interesting ones recently. So can I tell you about one?
Yeah, sure.
So I had no names mentioned clearly, but I had a graduate that applied for an opportunity with a company that I work with locally, and I spoke to him, and he graduated last year, and I said, so what have you done since last year? Have you worked at all? No. What have you done? Nothing. What? Nothing at all? No. Okay. Fair enough. Anyway, he had a very strong skill set, so I put him forward for the job, explaining the situation. They had a Teams interview with him, and they liked him, but they had the same concern as me, is we can't quite understand how on earth he's done nothing. Can you try and expand on that? So, and this is quite interesting when it comes to confidence. So I met up with this person for a coffee and a chat before his interview, literally about an hour before his interview, and I said, look, you can't have done nothing. You must have done something. You need to talk to me. You need to find out, because this is where it's either going to go quite well or quite poorly. What was really interesting is this guy was at uni during COVID, and I'm sure you, like the rest of us, can remember those reports of Cambridge students locked in their rooms, basically, for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, being brought food. Well, he was one of them. Well, funnily enough, that had knocked his confidence quite considerably. So we talked about that and we expanded on that. And we then talked about, well, what does he actually do with his time? It turns out he goes to he plays badminton, he loves chess, he games, he so there's all these things. And from saying, I don't do anything, to, well, this was the situation. I found it a real challenge because of what happened during COVID. And it knocked me a bit, and I wanted to take some time out to get over that. But actually, what I have been doing with my time is I've been playing badminton, and I've done this and I've done that, and so on and so forth. All of it. I mean, you got the job. Is the end of it. Right. But it was an interesting scenario, because I think we don't think about ourselves, do we? When we talk about ourselves, we don't actually think about what we have to offer.
Yeah, totally. And I hear this a lot in coaching as well, right? When it's linked to confidence and kind of this self-doubt of, well, I haven't got I've looked at a job profile and I don't have this and I don't have that and I don't have the other. And then they'll say something and I'll go, but hang on, that demonstrates planning, it demonstrates logic, it demonstrates initiative.
Yes.
But people don't often see it like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd say that he's, from what you've told us there, he's been working a little bit there on his self-confidence, his mental well-being, all of those kind of things that
very much
are really important. And I bet he's learnt a thing or two as well, playing badminton and gaming and
team
all
player,
of that.
Team player, competitive. And they're all the things I tend to try and look for when there's nothing black and white on a CV, is what do they do in their spare time, what their hobbies, what their interests, and so on as well. Because we've all got it.
Yeah, it's just how we draw that out, isn't it, in terms of if you had to describe what confidence meant to you personally, what would you say?
For me, confidence is more about knowledge, in a way. It's about understanding, and again, if I can refer it to from a recruitment perspective, I go into schools and colleges and stuff, and I talk to students and so on about interview skills. One of the things I always say, especially to schools and stuff, bless them, they've got no idea, and actually a lot of adults don't necessarily, is do your research. If you're going to go for an interview, do your research. If you go for an interview for a customer services role with a company, for argument's sake, do some research on the company, find out a little bit more about them. How long have they been going? How many offices they've got? How many staff do they have? What's their turnover? What's the product all about? What's the job? Try, if you don't understand some of the technical words in the job, find out, Google, ask somebody else, talk to other people, and so on, because knowledge gives you confidence. And I think it's so important. Find out who your interviewer is, find out how long they've been there, go and look them up on LinkedIn, because as soon as you walk in to that interview, all of a sudden you're feeling more confident straight away, because most companies are going to say, what do you know about us?
Yeah.
And if familiar. You can say, well, actually, you've been established for 15 years, you've got 2 branches, I know you employ 45 staff and blah, 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 as opposed to, well, nothing really.
Nothing. Yeah.
How are you going to feel and how are they going to feel, and so on as well. So to me, it's very much about learning and knowledge, and as you can see, and as you know, I'm sure, I'm an avid reader of Stephen Bartlett's latest book. Has just turned up on the doorstep, which was released today. But I'm an avid reader, and because knowledge just gives you a little bit more confidence about things.
No, and that's true. And knowledge comes up lots. The other thing that comes up as well, and it's linked to your do your research, is planning. And is about actually some things. One of my favorite questions in coaching, anyone who's listening to this that's worked with me, is about, okay, so all of these things feel like you can't do anything about them, but actually usually there's something that's in your control. So what can you control right now? And I was chatting to a client earlier today, and this client said, well, what I've realized is what I'm really good at and what's always in my control is my ability to plan.
Yeah.
And that's similar in this case, isn't it? You've got an ability to try and find out as much as you can before you go. And also, the bit about LinkedIn. I mean, when I was interviewing, we didn't have that kind of thing. Well, we probably did, but we probably didn't, to be fair, let's be honest. But now, if you've already seen that person's face on a photo on LinkedIn, it's a bit more familiar, isn't it? It's not quite as cold as it might have been,
totally.
I suppose.
Yeah, totally.
How do you... So for me, right, you would always be one of the most confident people at networking when we do the 60-second pitch. So how do you manage your own confidence? I hate following you at networking, by the way.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I mean, obviously, again, it's repetition makes you more confident with anything, doesn't it? So I do a lot of networking, as I just said. And the first time you go to a networking event and you get your 30 seconds about yourself, everyone, of course, goes, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? Do I really have to do it? What if I stutter? What if I fail? What if I look stupid? But, once you've done it once, twice, 3 times, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, it's second nature. And the bottom line is that I think the thing is with confidence is you feel people are judging you, and they're not, But most people, nice people anyway, which is the only ones you want to deal with, really,
totally
don't judge. Of course, they're not going to judge you. So they're interested in you. And again, as you know, if you can make them laugh, if you can make people laugh, which, as you know, I always get a little bit of a titter, which is why I wear the shirts on. That's a big help as well. So it's just repetition and not being too concerned about looking silly in front of people.
And the repetition is really important in confidence. For me, it's about that practice, that repetition, that consistency, and keep showing up and doing it. I also think as well in the networking, and everybody always says this, and when I used to run workshops and that, you do the whole, let's go around and introduce ourselves, and you feel like the room kind of shrinks, doesn't it? But we used to call it creeping death, because what happens is, when your turn is, so up till your turn, you're stood there just thinking, oh God, I'm in 3, I'm in 2, I'm in 1. And then by the time it gets to the person you've done yours, the person's next to you, you've not heard what they've said either, because suddenly you've gone, thank God that's over.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great piece of advice, actually, about, just repetition, be interested in what other people have got to say. Don't take yourself too seriously, because everybody in that room is feeling the same thing. No one's going to judge, and everybody's feeling the same thing, I think.
And try and have a laugh, try and have some fun with it. I go to one. There's one I go to. In fact, it's tomorrow, the first Friday, networking in Huntston. All welcome, obviously, around Chichester. And they're a lovely bunch of guys, and we do the same thing. We'll stand up and we'll do our little spiel and so on and so forth. But it's such a fun environment. We just take the mickey out of each other, and we're all there for business. We're all there with a serious intent. But it's a great environment, and so I highly encourage everyone to come along to that one if they're not sure, because it's so friendly. I normally end up telling Tommy Cooper jokes at it, because it's more interesting. More
interesting than business, than the 60-second pitch. I love it.
It's good. And and I've got business from that. I've got business from another networking events, and all these things you do. As you know, that's what you're there for at the end of the day. But it's not an expectation. You don't go expecting. You don't network to expecting to get business. Network to expecting to make contacts.
Yes.
Sometimes those contacts might turn into business.
And I think can be a big thing. So I have never gone along to networking expecting to get business. That said, most of my business comes from networking or referrals, but not necessarily with people I've networked with other people who they know. But I do hear a lot when we talk about having a bit of presence and networking, when I talk with clients, the whole, but I went to that network and I didn't get any business. No, but what did you do? Did you go in and do your sales pitch? Did you, how do you approach that? I see it as a bit of you're sowing a seed. Yeah, and you're not
Yes.
going to eat that fruit there and then. You're going to probably get that next summer or the summer after,
Yeah, totally.
depending on how it goes. But I can see again how that would knock confidence, because if networking's not your thing, but you want to do it, and you go and you don't enjoy it, or anything like that, I can see how that would then knock the confidence, and then you get out of the habit of the repetition and the practice, because you maybe haven't been for a while.
Yeah, totally. And that, you've got a whole room. If you work the room right, you've got a whole room full of people who are happy to help you out with people that they know. So, and they're like, that's the one thing I do love about the networking side of things, is actually I feel like there's a little gang of us, as you know, that we've got each other's backs and we'll help each other out. And if I needed to, if somebody asked me for a coach, you'd be somebody that I would talk to about it. Or refer to, or whatever.
And also I'd say as well that there are things that have happened in the house, like we needed the locks changing and stuff like that, and I've used people that I've met at networking.
Totally.
I would never have known where to find, because we're not local to here. Well, we're local now, but we didn't, we haven't got loads of people that we know. I grew up in rural Lincolnshire, where everybody knows everybody, and you always know somebody who can do something. It's not the same here. But networking has enabled that for me. Definitely.
And you want to help people out, don't you? You want to hurt the person that's asking for a little bit of help, and you want to help the person that's able to give that help too.
And that feels nice as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So tell me then so I know you gave the example of the graduate earlier. That's a really great example, but generally, how do you help your candidates with their confidence?
Well, as I've said, I guess one of the things is without question. So my process is very much all about understanding. So the first, I'm client driven. So a client will give me a vacancy, and that's how I rock. I'm there to fulfil my clients' wishes as opposed to my candidates, unfortunately. But that's the way recruitment tends to work. And that's all about understanding. So I don't want to waste anyone's time. I will talk to, as per the candidate we just spoke about, he had a fantastic skill set. His qualifications were superb for the role, and that's what I look for. And when I talk to a candidate, I ask them lots and lots of questions so that I can understand as much as possible about that individual, what they're looking for, why they're looking, what's the reason they're looking to come away from it, what they feel they have to offer, what their strengths are. When you say to somebody, what is it you're looking for? That's not a one-word answer, is it? It's not just about money and position. It's often about company and relationships and environment and culture,
line manager,
and so on and so forth. So all those things have to fit in to make sure that, from my perspective, they're the right match for the person, for the opportunity that I'm working with. If I feel that's right, then when I talk to them about opportunity, I'm marrying the two up, which hopefully then at that stage starts to give them confidence, because they're going to start to feel a little bit excited about the opportunity. And my job is to try and make both parties happy. I don't want an unhappy client, so I want to make sure that candidates I'm putting forward, they're going to go away. Phil, you've done a great match here. That's fantastic. He looks really good, and the candidate says the same thing. It's, to me, that's really important. So it's about knowledge, I guess, in a way, isn't it? It's about knowing that person is going to get quite excited because you've taken time to listen to what their needs are, and their needs are much more than job title and salary. They're much more deep rooted than that, and that's what you've got to listen for, I think.
I also love this idea of you being this joiner, this kind of connect
if
we were
career,
just talking about.
Yeah, 30 years in recruitment doesn't work, I'm going to be a matchmaker, basically.
There you go. Perfect.
I tried that, it didn't work at all. But yeah,
it's back to what we were saying about networking, isn't it? It's like this matching, this kind of connecting
personalities.
I also think it's fair to say that in some cases recruiters get bad reps, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yeah.
Oh, tell me more about that. I wasn't expecting you to say that.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. And but don't get me wrong. I think the reason they do is because they're trying to put square pegs in round holes. So, I'm in a fortunate position in terms of I work for myself. If I went along and worked for one of the big boys, without naming any, you're targeted. You're targeted to send out 10 CVs per day, per week, per whatever. So therefore quality is going to drop. I'm in charge of what I do per role. If I work for a big corporate and I bring on a job, my boss my manager is going to say to me, right, okay, send them 5 CVs and don't take too long. Do it as quickly as possible. So your quality drops. Well, whose fault's that? It's just one of those things, isn't it? Corporates do well, they make loads of money. But when I'm matched up against a corporate, I'm confident that I'm going to do a better job because I don't have that pressure. I don't, I can take the time. And I'd rather not send a CV. I always tell my clients that. I'd rather not send anyone than send the wrong person because that's what they're going to judge me on. Yeah. I may have a candidate that I'm not sure about. Well, that's a conversation. And I always tell my clients that, if I have someone that I think ticks most of the boxes that you've mentioned here, but they don't tick 1 or 2, would it be okay to give you a quick call and run those details past you? Majority of clients want that. That's what they want. And they're the clients that I want to work with, which is why I don't really work with big corporates. The majority of the clients that I work with in and around Chichester tend to be SMEs of 50 to 60 tops. I've worked with Wiley's, I've worked with Goodwood, great companies. Don't work with them at the moment, and that's absolutely fine by me. You have to fit into a mold, and they're dealing with lots and lots and lots of people. I don't want to be that person that's phoning them up constantly and harassing them and so on. And your average recruiter is targeted to do those calls all day, every day. And it's not me.
And I have to say, right, that isn't something that's ever really crossed. I mean, it's obvious now you've said it, but in terms of, because often with a client, I might have a conversation that says, okay, well, why don't you pop in a call to a recruiter, find out what's out there, because I'm sure that somebody like you would be happy to have a conversation with somebody about what's out there, if they approached you. But actually, what hasn't occurred to me is that because you're independent, that would be probably a very different conversation to
And I'm normally quite happy to try and give my time to people that want some advice. Because you never know where that's going to lead. So I do get, because I'm Chichester Recruitment now, I get more and more calls from people looking for temporary work. I always refer them on to other recruiters in the local area, but I'm quite happy to take those calls and try and pass them on if I can. But if somebody's actually after some advice, then I'll take the time to try and give that to them, because you never quite know what that person's, who they're connected to, who they're going to talk to, what they're going to say about you. And reputation's everything, as we know.
I think the other two things that you said that I really love is about this ability to say, actually, no, that's not the right person. I'd rather not send a CV. That takes some doing, right? And the other bit about, and you use the phrase tick the box, so that if there's 7, they've got 5. Let's have a conversation, because I know for a fact that wasn't there a survey a while ago? I know for a fact, and I'm going, was there? Questioning myself. That there's this thing that says how men and women approach these things differently, right? And a man will look at it and go, oh, I've got 5 of the 7, brilliant. A woman will look at it and go, I've got 5 of the 7, absolutely not, I'm never going to get that job.
Interesting.
And I hear that loads. So I think I would take away some confidence knowing that actually if I was a woman working with you and I'd got 5 of the 7, I know you're going to fight my corner.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Which probably we all need somebody in our corner like that when we're in this kind of situation and we're questioning ourselves, and that inner critic, the good old Betty that I call mine, is off going, oh, but Gail, you've only got 5 of those and they want 7. I need somebody like you to go, actually, no, let's have a conversation about this, because you might have those 7, just not in the way they've described them on the job description, right?
Yeah, totally. And the bottom line is, clients do have, hit checklists of what they want. Very rarely are they all ticked off. Very, very rarely. And I'm always slightly dubious about the candidates that tick all those boxes, because quite often there's some other issue or whatever. So it's life, isn't it? Life doesn't always necessarily run in a straight path. So And it's the same in recruitment. But I'm always slightly concerned when things are going far too well for me in my business. Because last week, or the week before, I made 3 placements in one day. I got 3 job offers and 3 offers accepted in one day, and that's, for a small business like me, that's pretty rare. Yeah. And I thought, yeah, one of those isn't going to work. Sure enough, 24 hours later, luckily. But the interesting thing was the candidate had to withdraw for various reasons, which were perfectly understandable. The job's still live. The clients have gone on holiday, and I'll deal with them when they get back. So it's still a live role for me. I'm not overly concerned. But that's life.
Yeah,
you know, you expect those things to a point. I'm not negative. I'm realistic.
No. but also I know that I'm going to be using that, right? That where it says very rarely all of those boxes are ticked.
Oh yeah.
I think if you're in the situation where you're looking for a job, you're going to automatically think and lose confidence in the fact that you don't have it and another candidate will, and that's not true.
Yeah. Well,
in real life, that's not true.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think, we talked about confidence, instilling confidence in candidates and stuff, and that's one thing. So a lot of the roles that I've got 1 or 2 clients that are very comfortable and happy to take on graduates. Some graduates have some work experience, even if it's working at McDonald's or a shoe shop or whatever it is. That's some experience, which is great. But they may well lack experience when it comes to the interviews and so on. So they part of my job is to obviously make them feel a little bit more confident. And one of the things I always say is, hang on, you're a graduate, you got a degree, you've studied hard for 3 years or however long to get that qualification. You should be proud of that. And I think people don't really think about that. And when you say that, they go, oh yeah, well, that's a good point. I haven't got a degree. It's good for you. That's good for you. It takes some effort. It takes some a certain amount of commitment and so on to attain and do what you've done. So you should be proud of that. And when you say that to people, it's so obvious, isn't it? When you say it to someone, they're like, oh yeah, hadn't thought about that. So and that's fair enough, because we don't tend to think about things like that from ourselves.
No, we can do it for other people, but we can't always do it for ourselves. Because I was just going to then ask you, so what is the area do you think that people lack confidence when it comes to kind of CVs, interviews, going for positions?
It can vary tremendously. CVs are an interesting one, aren't they? So we'll touch on CVs a little bit. I see, as I'm sure you can imagine, CVs all day long, and they're very rarely the same. They're so different, and sometimes I have to say to people that you need to expand on your CV, you need to change, you need to, and a lot of people aren't confident in their CVs because they haven't put the information down. So it's all about information and so on as well. A CV should be no longer than 1 or 2 pages tops, and you get some that are 8 and 10 pages because they think it's quite interesting. Wow. What's most relevant is actually not what you did 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It's what you've been doing over the past 5 years, and so on. That's what clients are going to be interested in. And so getting down that information is really important. But I've got to be honest, and I say this with enthusiasm and excitement. There's a little thing now called Chat GPT. You're not sure about writing a CV? Ask Chat GPT to do it for you, or put the one that you've got already in it and ask it to expand on it. Or it is an incredible tool that I've started to use on a more and more regular basis. One of the things I dread is when I get a job on and I have to write an advert for my online advertising. Chat GPT does it.
Really? God, isn't that interesting?
Well, it's a tool. Now, like any tool, you have to use it effectively. So it's not, you don't just bung it in and write me an ad, and there's a little bit more to it than that. But at the same time, it's a tool. So whether it's writing an advert or writing a CV, there are tools nowadays more than ever that are out there to help you. So use them. And things like that are free. When it comes to interviews, I mean, as I say, it's knowledge. It's knowledge and a good coach. And as I'm sure you're aware, some people, are going to do quite well. If anything, you have to kind of rein them in a little bit and will calm them down. or tell them that, there's 2 ears and 1 mouth, you need to use it
for a reason. Yeah.
And some you're going to need to give them a little bit more confidence and so on as well. So it varies from person to person, but there's lots of, I always send out a little interview tips whenever I set an interview up somebody. There's a whole list of things there that they should do. Dress the part, act the part, have some questions written down. That's one of the things that is really important to me. Do your research, but always make sure you've got questions always. Doesn't matter if the client answers all the questions that you've got, think of some more. The worst feedback I get from a client is the interview went really well, but right at the end, they didn't ask one single question.
What's the best question then to ask?
I'm glad you asked me that. Because there is one, clearly.
Go on. We're
and the best question to ask at interview is, can I ask you what sort of person you're looking for to fill this role?
Oh, good question.
Because once you've asked that and they say, well, we're looking for this and this and this and this, that's your opportunity to say, well, let me tell you, I've got the skills to do this. I've got experience in this. I'm a little bit light on that bit, but I'm very happy to learn. And I know somebody who's good. It sets the framework for the candidate to be able to expand on what the client is looking for.
And I guess as well, if you are that candidate, you can then, if you feel you've maybe missed something in the questions, that might then be your opportunity to bring that back around.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's the one question. I'm not saying everybody asks it, but I always try and encourage people to ask it.
Yeah, it's a great question. Question.
And the other question I'd say is, and I always encourage people to say at the end of their interview, if they're happy, if they like what they've seen, if they're interested in the role, tell the client, thank you so much for your time. I'm really interested in the opportunity. When will I hear anything? I just want you to know, I'm interested.
Do you think it's fair or not to say that it's more of a two-way street than it used to be? So when I was having interviews, and I hear this a lot, that it's all about whether you fit in with them. But actually now I think that's turned a little bit, and it's more about, well, what can they offer you? What, is this the right fit for you? So I feel like it's shifted in the few years to say, actually, this isn't just about the employer. It's also about the candidate feeling that it's the right environment.
Very much so, yeah. And now I guess candidates know they're worth more than ever, and that's fair. We've got 1 million vacancies currently in the UK, and a lot of them really hard to fill. So candidates do know that they can in certain industries, in fairness, that they're in demand. That said, you still need to be mindful of the fact that actually, depending on scenarios, there aren't lots and lots of choices out there. And I think more and more, as you say, it's more about the people and the people fit and the culture and so on. I've had candidates that would turn down more money to go to a company they felt more comfortable in.
Yeah,
which is great, isn't it? So,
really get that.
And that's what it should be. I think nowadays, since COVID, we're much more work-life balance. Prior to COVID, none of my clients offered hybrid working. They all offer it now.
I was going to ask you as well about that, and so I'm glad you lined that up nicely, because I've noticed, I know we were in COVID, we all worked remotely, right? And then there was this we want people to slowly start coming back in, and I think now we're seeing a shift to actually, I'm hearing people saying, I quite like being in the office now, whereas I didn't before. And the idea of working from home would have been amazing, and because I always work from home, I always had 2 days from home even before COVID. And I always felt like I had a bit of FOMO about what was going on in the office, because I wasn't in there. I was almost out of sight, out of mind. And it wasn't something that was done regularly or as per normal, if you like, in the office I worked in. But now it is. But I'm hearing more and more that people want to do this hybrid thing, because actually, where does your challenge come from? Your different thinking, you're just being able to walk around to somebody's desk and go, can I just can I ask you, or the corridor conversations, all of those kind of things, that kind of social learning that we don't get when we're sat in front of a screen at home.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, and whether it's here to stay or not, time will tell. I suspect it'll be more choice than anything else. But I think you're right. I think people do kind of miss that. I speak to, I spoke to somebody. I placed somebody recently who was desperate to actually get back into the office and work within a team. And I spoke to another candidate recently who in 7 years had only seen his manager once, and actually he wanted to feel a part of something, and he just didn't. But hybrid working is a great thing for most people, and certainly the feedback I get from most people is that they really enjoy the opportunity of hybrid working, and so most clients tend to offer that. And the other good thing about it is I feel it extends their reach. So actually, if you're a hybrid worker, you're prepared to travel a little bit further because you don't have to go in every single day.
Yeah.
So that's a win-win from a candidate and a client perspective.
Yeah.
But will it be here in 5 years? Be interesting.
It's really interesting, because I know there's a couple of things we've done where I've done them face to face with teams, and you can just feel the vibe in the room. And I've done it with the same team online, and it just doesn't. It worked and it was great, but you just don't get that. And I struggle with that as a facilitator, right, as well, because when you run workshops, people wander in, they have a natter, they're getting drinks, they sit down, and then at the end, there's always somebody that says, "Can I help you tidy up?" And you just go, "Leave meeting," and you're sat there like, "Oh, okay." What do I do now? There's no one here. I have no idea how that went or anything. So I think that there's this element, and I also wonder as well whether that, in terms of confidence, we get a lot of confidence from those interactions we have in the office, where we can check in with somebody, or we can you just look at this? Or we get a bit of reassurance probably that builds our confidence, go, "Oh, I'm doing all right, actually." Whereas when you're sat at home on your own, you have that FOMO of, "Oh my God, is there anyone out there? What's going on? What am I doing?"
It's going to be an interesting time, I think. I suspect it's going to be here for a while yet, because the younger workforce, it's all they've ever known, isn't it? They're coming into this and that's what they want. So, and let's be honest, when you're working from home, are you there, in front of your desk? Some people I'm sure are, but actually you do have a little bit more flexibility. As long as you get the work done. It's the most important thing, isn't it?
But and actually, isn't it about productivity and not about presenteeism,
Well, exactly, And I mean, there's a new thing now where I kind of, a lot of people are pushing for a 4-day week, which I try and embrace. I try and work a 4-day week. And my wife said to me a few years back, "Why don't you just get down?" I've been doing this job a long time now, and I've been running my own business for a long time. And my productivity doing a 4-day week is no different to working a 5-day week. I try not to work as much on a Friday, but that said, I'll take a call, I'll make a call, and sometimes I'll work the whole day. It depends on what it is. But there's a lot to be said for it. It's interesting.
And
that's what people want. People coming back to the point that you said about actually what it's, some of the things that candidates perhaps are more in control nowadays. And I suspect that's what they want as well. They want this. They'll certainly do at the moment. Majority that I speak to want that flexibility.
I'm working with a business who have just introduced a 4-day working week, and after the initial kind of what does this mean and how will this work, I'm not really sure, it's worked really well for them, and the benefits of that, they a 3-day weekend, so they some of them are client facing, so they've done a rota so that they all fairly work a Friday, so there's always somebody there from a client point of view. But I think a lot of them have, seen it as, somebody described it as, I've just moved house, so it means I'm not spending my 2 days at a weekend sorting out the house. I can maybe do that too, and then I've still got a day off.
Yes.
So suddenly this is more appealing than, a 5-day week.
Yeah, no, totally. It's interesting, isn't it?
Really,
the ever-changing face.
Totally. Yeah. So, the final question before we kind of go into sort of top tips and wrap up for me would be, what advice would you give to somebody who has to deal with the no's? So when they're all set up and they're feeling pretty confident, not that they're going to get the job, but they're feeling confident going into the interview, they're going to give a good account of themselves, but then it comes back and actually it's a no. How do you deal with that?
Well, obviously a big part of my job is saying to people, sorry, say you haven't got the job. But I always look on it that, I come from a sales background, and at the end of the day, we're all in that. I'm a great believer in karma. things happen for a reason. If you didn't get that job, it's because there's a better one out there. And I always try and say that to people. Now I'm a small business, and client led, so I don't have hundreds of opportunities at any one time. But I do feel that the candidates that I work with are the best quality. And I'm in Chichester, so it's a fairly small place. So if they're not, I always try and say to people, the more no's you're going to get, the closer you're getting to that yes. And that yes is going to be the one that you want. Trust me, And if it's a no for a good reason. It may not seem like that to you, but it is.
Right now. But in the longer.
Right now.
Somebody once said to me that there were, and actually this might have been a sales coach that said this to me, that no stands for next one.
Yes, absolutely.
Or next opportunity, I guess. Yeah, and that's always stuck with me. Even though in that moment it feels rubbish. Yeah. And your confidence roller coaster is like just gone right down that massive hill. But actually, I guess it's about then, what did you learn from that? And you go again, you make adjustments and you go again.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And we're all going to get no's in life, aren't we? It's no matter what. So actually, a huge part of life is actually dealing with no's. So you're absolutely right. Next opportunity. If that's not right, it's for the right reasons. Keep looking. And I always assure people that if something comes up that's similar, then I'll talk to them about it, which I quite often do. Depending upon what's available from my clients and so on as well. So great,
brilliant. So give me then your top 3 tips for interview confidence.
Well, as you say, research. Make sure that you are fully competent in your knowledge of what the company does, what the role entails. Try and do some research on the person that's going to be interviewing you, so that you can go in there with confidence, because you are more than likely going to be asked, what do you know about us? So research. The second one is smile. Smile, enjoy it, have fun, be yourself. Try and look for things that you have in common. The chap that I spoke to you about earlier, who played badminton, when he went in for his interview, one of the interviewers played badminton. Bang!
Amazing.
Surprise, they had a 5-minute conversation all about badminton. But once you've got that something in common there, and the world's, it's a fairly small place at times. Then again, that helps. And if you can get those, always have questions. If you can get those killer questions in, please tell me, what sort of person are you looking for to fill this role? I've really enjoyed that. I'm really interested in the opportunity. What's the next stage? And that's great. And I always try and encourage people to. They always call me with their feedback. But if they're not dealing with me, I always encourage students at schools and so on, follow it up with an email. If they've got a business card, send them an email. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed our meeting, and I just want to let you know that I'm really interested in the opportunity. Because as I say to them, if they're interviewing 5 people that day and you're the first one, and bing, they get a little email at the end of the day or the very next day, who's going to be uppermost in their thoughts? So there's lots of little tricks and tips and things like that.
I love that idea of actually that email at the end, just because, like you say, if you've been the first one they've seen during the day and they've seen 5 people, and actually maybe the last person was really good, but then your email pops up, it brings you to the forefront again, doesn't it?
Totally.
And for me, that's a bit that goes, actually, that's somebody being themselves. They've taken their time out to do that. It's a nicely worded email. There would be something in that for me, definitely.
And if they're a little bit undecided, perhaps between that one person and the other person, A or B, you get that little email pop in. Oh, well, there's your decider, isn't it? Straight away.
Yeah, totally.
So, they're all little things, but they all make a difference.
Definitely. Oh, right, Phil, this has been really interesting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Where can the listeners get in touch with you if they want more tips? I mean, clearly they need to follow you on LinkedIn because you do jokes and to see shirts and clearly for Chichester
my fashion
too.
sense.
Yes. Yes.
I love a bit of LinkedIn. Normally post 3 times a week. But Chichester Recruitment. There's only one Chichester Recruitment. I nearly burst into song then. But it's Chichester Recruitment. You can find me on there on LinkedIn. I'm very active, as you say, on LinkedIn, or at a networking event near you.
Coming to
as
an
you know.
event near you.
And the one thing I would say is Chamber of Commerce, Chichester Chamber of Commerce and Industry, of which I'm an ambassador. Then come along to an event. The next event is, I think, I might be wrong, I think it's the 12th of September, and it's the Chichester Harbour Conservancy. It's free, but you get a little boat ride all around the harbour, and you meet some really nice, interesting business people. So.
And I keep promising I'm going to come, and I think I might be able to make. I'm not going to promise here right now, but I think I might be able to make it.
Yeah, I might not be there for that one. Anyway.
Oh my God! Wow.
Yeah. Well, I might be. I don't know yet.
Brilliant.
Book a last minute holiday.
Yeah, nice. Lovely. Look, Phil, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me. So I just say to our listeners, we'll pop everything in the show notes in terms of where you can get in touch with Phil. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Confidence Conversations podcast.